So I'm sitting behind my desk, minding my own business, preparing the next video that's coming up soon. And suddenly, big news out of Glashütte that Lange decided to drop a steel sports watch. They're calling it the Oddyseus, or there's all kinds of different names of pronunciating. I'm going to be calling it the Odysseus because that's the Greek translation, that's where it came from. And if you don't know who Odysseus was in mythology, he basically was the tactician that came up with the idea to use the Trojan horse to get into Troy. If you've seen the film Troy, you know about the Trojan horse. So it's a very interesting name, very interesting discussion. But I thought of, instead of making a video about it, we could break the news by having a talk through the design of the watch. And I'll feature a few pictures on the screen while I talk through it. But it is quite the fascinating piece, and I haven't given it much thought. I've watched a brilliant video done by Watch Advisor. Highly recommend you have a look at it. It's 20 minutes long and basically runs through the whole process of how they came up with the idea with the product specialist from Lange in the room. So the whole idea, the whole concept of this watch, bringing out a sports watch, a steel Lange, they say it's been something on their minds for 10 years, and they've finally been able to do it. And at first, I'll be honest, I sort of rolled my eyes when hearing the news. You know, if you're on social media and you see all these different outlets premiering this watch, you kind of think to yourself, okay, great, it's steel sports craziness. Everyone's just going mad. Bell and Ross with their BRN05, I don't even know what the reference is. But Lange deciding to do this is quite something. And I was actually won over by the Watch Advisor video for a few reasons. The talking through of just how the approach was taken. You know, seeing the watch in hand, you get a better understanding about what it looks like, how it functions. Firstly, we can start by talking about the bracelet. Very Jubilee-esque in styling, fully brushed all the way through, which is great. Very nice integration between it and the case. We'll get to that in a second. But just ingenious in the way they have executed the clasp, for example. Very simple one fold over clasp with a twin trigger deployant. But then it has a button in the center of it that is your micro adjust, that you can actually adjust 5 millimeters on the fly when it's on your wrist. Very simple, very streamlined and easy. We moved to the form of the watch. There was talk about them wanting to play around with a rectangular or a square styled case, but they decided to stick with a circle. Now I'm a little bit on the fence with that idea because this watch might have looked a bit more effective in a square case. We can talk about that in a second. But what I like most about it, on first impressions especially, is that you can see that it is a Lange Söhne. The proportions are there, the way the lugs are connected to the case, the styling is there. It's not like the styling and the language of the watch has been lost, like with so many other names that are bringing out these steel watches. Chopard was another one who brought out their Alpine recently. All of these brands are trying their best to sort of gentrify. What's the word we called it? It was either gentrify or it was nautilize, or, you know, all these different terms to try and sum up what these companies are doing with their steel watches. And Lange very intelligently kept their DNA throughout the piece. We look at just the lugs and the case. The lugs basically explain exactly what the watch is, and that it is in fact a Saxonia based piece. Very similar styling to how we normally see it. And that sort of gets in the way of how the end links integrate with the case, I believe. It might have looked a bit better if they had done a little bit of tweaking in that position. But another nice, very interesting feature that surprised me the most. We look at the so-called crown guards around the crown. They almost look like, I sort of have the idea that they look like the grill of a Studebaker. If you know what a 60s Studebaker looked like back in the day. And to my surprise, these are actually pushers. They're not just crown guards, they're actually pushers to be used to adjust the day and the month indicator. Very simple, very easy, seamless. You know, a typical German approach. It's very nice and clean. That's the first thing that really comes to mind when I look at it. There are a few questionable choices they made in a few places. The product specialist said that this was their fourth attempt to come up with a good, resounding answer to their brief. And I think for the most part, they've hit it very well because they have managed to create a very Lange looking piece, but still keep it in a sports field. That's pretty interesting. We look at the complications. There's a new movement. I won't go into the technicalities of that because I'm not qualified enough to talk about those things. We have a day, we have a month indicator, big sub-seconds dial below, and it looks like a Saxonia. It looks like something that Lange would produce. Everything down to the dial, to the batons, the hands, everything is a part of that character. So what they managed to do was basically rummage in the bin of ideas of what they've used before with their dress watches and blend it together into a steel case. And I think that is very admirable. Just looking at a few more details, running around the case again, I'm just looking at the proportions and everything else. I wonder if the watch would have looked a bit more effective if the lugs were adjusted in a few places and if the crown guards were reflected on the other side of the case to lessen that there's an imbalance between the pushers on the one side and just a standard case on the other. It's a very interesting watch. It's a piece that takes your attention and keeps you looking. Again, I have to implore you to watch the Watch Advisor clip because they run through it, the wearing experience, all of those details. You know, the watch has got 120 meters of water resistance, so it is, for all intents and purposes, a sports watch. A really, really expensive sports watch. And it will appeal greatly to the majority because, I mean, it does what Lange sets out to do with their movements and their quality of finishing. Of course, it's got a beautiful case back and everything else. At the same time, it's a functional weekend watch that you can wear. So again, the one reservation I really have when I look at it is the way the lugs integrate with the end links. It looks a little bit too simple. Not as cleanly thought out as it could have been, but on the whole, I really like the approach. They keep the DNA of Lange strong throughout. That is so important, which all the other brands that we've been seeing that have been releasing these steel pieces don't manage to do. This watch very much has that modern and classical blend of two sides. Whether or not it's 100% perfect in the way it's been executed is up to you. I do really like the balance of the dial. It's just typical Lange, the way they've placed the day and the date complications on either side of the dial. The sub-seconds looks stunning. So really the dial, I think, is perfect. The color, the finishing, absolutely gorgeous. Love the crown guards that act as the pushers to adjust the separate complications. But the lugs and the bracelet, I'm not so sold on it yet. And I think it's just because we've seen so many bracelets that sort of mirror the approach that Rolex and Omega and other names do. And you kind of think, well, since it is Lange, you would imagine they might take a little bit of a different approach. I guess they're doing this purely because you would want to put this watch on a leather strap, probably. And it would look really good. So, I don't know, if it was me, just looking at the overall design of the watch again, looking at the integration between the lugs and the end links, it would be superb if the end link that connects to the case was solid throughout, sort of mirroring the effect that the crown guards had to the case. So you very much square it off and you keep that form very simple. I'll do a quick mock-up of this watch as I talk through it and you'll see what I mean. So in essence, the end link being solid throughout would look a little bit cleaner. And I would say it would pair more fluidly with the lugs of the case. All in all, it's a beautiful looking watch. Really is nice. I love the approach. Love the fact they've kept the language. Love the color choice. Love the fact that it's fully brushed. You know, polishing has been left on the side in favor of the more sporty feel. And it's something we haven't seen before. And I think this is what's going to appeal to so many people, is that it has the blend of classic and modern. You can see it's very much a classic watch, but has some modern traits in it. You know, Lange is very spare with the way they attack modern pieces. And this looks like it has both halves of modern and classical aesthetics in one. Very unique, very distinct. So yeah, the Oddyseus gets a thumbs up from me. I will add a photo edit of what I would do with the end link integration. All in all, great watch, love the design. I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts below and what you think about it. And let me know if you'd like me to do more of these in the future. I can always do these audio logs prior to the longer videos, as always. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed the brief discussion, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers for now.